Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're well. It's Rabbi Akiva Males, and today is Wednesday. It is October the 26th, and we're getting ready for Parshas Noach. I want to share some sources with you on the Parsha that I think you'll find interesting. I hope you'll find interesting, and I hope there'll be items perhaps you haven't seen before and may not have thought of. So let's jump right in. In Noach, we read about this flood that takes place. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God Almighty, is upset with the trajectory in which mankind is taken, and has decided he's going to obliterate the world and start over again with Noach and his family. And we're going to see now at the beginning of the Parsha, that's where we see that Noach and the family. That's where we find that they are being told to go into the Aron. I'm just gonna pause for 1 second. I forgot to mute everyone. And there we go. And there we go. Okay, I'm sorry. So we're at the beginning of the Parsha, we're told that they go into the Teva, into the Ark. So let's read those psukim together. The pasuk tells us in Perek Zayin, that's chapter 7. It says, "Vayomer Hashem leNoach." God says to Noach, "Bo ata v'chol beischa el hateva." I want you and your household to go into the Ark. Ki oscha re'isi tzadik lefanai b'dora hazeh. Because I've seen that you and your family, you, specifically you, are a righteous person in this evil generation. So Noach has just been working on this ark for years. He's been building it, and now it's come time for the flood. So the pasuk continues, Beis, Mikol ha'beima Torah, from all the animals which are pure, meaning the ones that are going to be considered in the future kosher animals, Tikach lecha shiva ish v'ishto, I want you to take mates, 7 men, 7 males and 7 females. And from the animals that are not going to be kosher, hishnaim ish v'ishto. I want you to take 2, a male and its mate, a male and its and the female. Gimel 3, gam me'of hashamayim, and also when it comes to birds, shiva zachar nekeva l'chayo zera kol haaretz. And when it comes to birds, also I want you to take 7 pairs, male and female, from all of the birds in the world. This way you'll keep them repopulating. Daled 4, Kiliyamim od shiva, because in another 7 days, Anochi mamtir al aretz arba'im yom v'arba'im laila. In another 7 days, I'm going to start the rain, and it's going to come down for 40 days and 40 nights straight. Umachisi es kol yakum asher asisi me'al pnei ha'adama. And I will blot out, I will wipe out everything that I've made on this entire planet. 5, Vayas Noach k'chol asher tzivo Hashem. Noach did everything that God asked of him. So he built the ark, and they begin all the preparations to enter into it. He gathers all the animals. Vav 6, V'Noach ben sheish me'os shana. Noach was 600 years old. V'amabul hayamayim al haaretz, when the flood begins. Zayin 7, V'yavo Noach uvanav ishto u'neshev vanav ito el hateva mepnei mei hamabul. Now Noach, his children and his wife, and the kids' wives, they all enter the ark. Why did they enter the ark? Because of the flood waters. So this parak began in Aleph, God telling Noach, now's the time to go into the ark. And in the 7th pasuk in Zion, that's where we read that they finally did go into the ark. And why did they go into the ark? Because of the flood waters. So it seems if a careful reading of the psukim seems as if Hashem was telling Noach before the flood waters even began, now's the time to go in, because in another 7 days, the flood's going to begin. But if you read the psukim carefully, it sounds like in Pasuk Zayin, in verse 7, that Noach does not go in when he was initially told. He and his wife and the kids and their wives, they only go in when the rain actually begins. So let's see Rashi. Rashi picks up on this, and he quotes the Medrash. Rashi says, Mipnei mei hamabul, why did Noach and his wife and the sons and their wives, why did they finally enter the ark? Because of the water of the floods. Not because God told them to go in at the beginning of those verses in Pasuk Aleph, but rather it sounds like they waited until it actually started raining, until the flood begins. That's what finally makes them go in. So let's see what Rashi says, quoting the Medrash. Af Noach miktane emunah. Noach, even Noach, this righteous fellow, he was a man of little faith. O ye men of little faith. Ma'amin ve'eno ma'amin. On the one hand, he believed there would be a flood, but on the other hand, he did not believe it. Sheyavo mabel, that the flood was going to come. Nichnas lateva, and he did not go into the ark ad shedachku hamayim, until the waters forced him to do so. So this is an astonishing medrash that Rashi's quoting. Is that here's Noach, he's just spent, according, if you do the math, he's just spent the last 120 years working on this ark. And he doesn't go into it until the water basically forced him into it. God told him go into it a week earlier, and Rashi, quoting the Medrash, says he was a man of little faith. He didn't believe it was going to actually come. The flood was going to actually come until it actually started. At that point, he goes into the Teva. It's an astonishing Rashi. And all the commentaries, I should say many of the commentaries on this Rashi, because Rashi's quoting a Medrash, want to make sense of this. Is that, one second, you're telling me Noach's a man of little faith? He's just become the laughing stock of the world. Everyone's been mocking him for the last 120 years because everyone's laughing at him. This crazy old Noah, he's out there building this boat, this huge boat. What are you, out of your mind? And he's taken all that verbal abuse and he's building that boat. If there's one person in the world who believes the flood is coming, it's Noah. Because look what he's done. He's ostracized himself from the world. He's become a laughing stock. He's worked on this every single day for the last 120 years. How could it possibly be that Noach doubted whether or not the flood was going to come? How do we explain that? So I've seen a lot of commentators will just say, listen, this is the nature of the beast. This is the way mankind works. We could intellectually know something, but there could be something lacking in how we feel about it. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter used to say the greatest distance in the world is between a person's mind and a person's heart. We intellectually know so much, but do we really feel it? Do we really act on that? So this might be an example of that. That's what I remember hearing many commentators and many speakers talk about this Rashi. But this year I saw something fascinating and I want to share that with you. I saw a new perspective on this Rashi that helps us understand what exactly was Noach struggling with. So let's go to page 2. And you're going to see this commentary. We've read him, we've quoted him once or twice. In this past year, I kind of discovered him. It's Rav Yosef Salanter, and Rav Yosef Salanter, not Rav Yisrael Salanter, that was the famous founder of the Musar movement. This was Rav Yosef Salanter, who was a descendant of Rav Shmuel Salant in Yerushalayim, and he passed away, I believe, in the 20th century. I'd have to look up what the exact, I believe in the 1960s or something like that. But they've written a lot of his teachings up in a sefer called Be'er Yosef. And I want to share this one with you. He gives a very nice understanding of this medrash that Rashi quotes. So let's see, we're on page 2, and you'll see that, again, in his sefer, this was on the bottom of one page, and it goes on to the top of the next page. That's why you see it's like kind of twice there. So let's see. He's going on the pasuk, Vayavo Noach, that Noach, Vanav Noach, the whole family, they finally enter the ark. Why? Mipnei me'amabo, because of the waters of the flood. And now he quotes Rashi, because of Rashi. Af Noach miktane emunah. Noach was a man of little faith. Mamin ve'no mamin. He believed, but at the same time, he did not believe that the flood was going to come. And he didn't enter the ark until the water forced him to do so. Okay, that's what Rashi said, quoting the Medrash. So let's see what Rav Yosef Salant does with this. Kamuvan, it's well understood. It's very hard to understand Rashi's words at a face value. How could it be that Noach really doubted whether or not the flood was going to come? First of all, God himself told him. He was a prophet. God spoke to him. That God told him, I am going to be bringing a flood on this world. And then the pasuk testifies to the fact that Noach believed the message, because the pasuk says that Noach went through all the motions. He went through all the actions, everything that God asked him to do, gathering the animals, building the boat. He did all that. And he worked on that ark for 120 years. And God says to him, we're going to the next section on the right there. And God attests that I see that you are a righteous person in this generation of folly, in this generation of evildoers. You are a righteous person. Okay, and if that's the case, It's very hard to say that Noach doubted and he didn't think that the Mabul was going to come. There's so many indications that he did believe. Again, God spoke to him. He actually, he put it into practice. Everything God asked of him, building the ark, gathering the animals, he did all that. And then the Pasuk testifies about him that he was righteous. What does that mean that he didn't believe? So look what Rav Yosef Salant suggests. I thought this is beautiful. The Efsher, perhaps you can explain it as follows. Shakavana, what does the Medrash mean? The Rashi quotes, Chiyada Noach knew Shakadosh Baruch Hu Rachum v'Chanun. Noach knows that God is incredibly merciful. And his mercy doesn't just hit human beings, it extends to all of his creations. So Noach was thinking, God's going to have mercy on the creations of his hands. And he won't destroy them. In other words, that was what Noach, it's not that Noach doubted God. Noach knew God so well that he knew what kind of a rachaman, he knows what kind of a merciful being God is. And knowing how great God's mercy is, he says, I just don't think God could do it. I don't think he's capable of destroying the world. The Gemara says in Sanhedrin al Pasuk, that when God says to Noach, in another 7 days, I'm going to do it, and then it says 7 days later, the waters of the flood were on the world. What went on during those 7 days? One opinion says in the Gemara, that God set up some kind of timeline. What does that mean? Perish Rashi. Rashi explains that Gemara. That God said, okay, I know I said initially when I spoke to Noach, I'm giving the world 120 years till I bring the flood. But now he just added, there's Hashem so merciful, he added an extra 7 days. That's what it means when the Pasuk says, okay, in another 7 days. God added another 7 days because he's trying to stretch it out that maybe the world will do tshuva. He says, Shekavalam, he added another 7 days to the 120 that he had initially set up. And humanity did not improve. So then God says another 7 days. Maybe we'll give them another 7 days and maybe they'll correct themselves. And I won't have to bring the Mabul. So Rabbi Yosef Salant suggests because Noach believed, he was a believer in just how merciful God is, Al-Bara for all of his creations, and he's awaiting that we should return to him. That's why he did not go into the ark until the waters forced him in. He couldn't bring himself to believe that God was going to give up on humanity. In other words, it's not that Noach didn't believe in Hashem's powers. He believes in Hashem's powers, but he, even stronger, believes in Hashem's rachamim. He knows the nature of God. And that's why he just can't believe God's going to go through with this until the waters actually come. And he says, oh my God, it's happened. We got to go in the ark. But until that point, he just thought God's too merciful to do this. Not that he doubts God's abilities, but he knows how merciful Hashem is. This fits a lot better. And he says, in truth, the bottom paragraph, so what, is that really a sin that Noach doubted things here? Ad shenikra miktane emuna. The Medrash refers to him as Ketane Emunah. He's a man of little faith. The way we just explained it, is that a man of little faith? That's a man who's got incredible faith in the mercy of Hashem. So what does the Medrash mean when it calls Noach Ketane Emunah? He's a person of little faith. Since he waited to go into the ark, because he's thinking maybe God will have Rahmanas, will have incredible mercy on his creations. Or maybe he thought that again, or maybe humanity will improve. But when they first start to see the raindrops or the water, maybe they'll change their act. So let's see the next paragraph. Ulam. So that's what he's bothered with. So how do we square this away? If the way we're explaining Noach, it's a double-edged sword. We have to explain Noach because it makes no sense to say Noach was a man of little faith. So he says, okay, Noach really believed in Hashem's midas harachmim, his mercy. Okay, but now we've just made Noach so good. How do you understand the Medrash that called him Ketane Emunah? So it's like you got to balance the other side now. So what does he do in this next paragraph? He says, Ulam kivan shenoach nitztava mefurash mepi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You can't change the fact that Noach, at the beginning of this parak in Pasuk Aleph, received a direct command from Hashem Bo ata v'chol beischal ateva. God told him, enter, you and your whole family, your whole household, go into the ark. He should have followed orders. And gone into the ark. You're right. Noach, you could in your mind think, I don't think it's going to happen because God's too merciful. But in the meantime, follow instructions. God said, go into the ark, go into the teva. And he says, sit in the ark for the next 7 days and wait. Maybe the world did tshuva, maybe Hashem will have rachmanus. Or maybe they will really do tshuva. He should have followed orders. That's insubordination. If he was in the military, he'd be court-martialed. He didn't follow orders from a superior. We found something very similar by Moshe. God says to Moshe, after the sin of hitting the rock, he says, look at the words God used. Hashem didn't just use the words, you didn't listen to me. He says, Lo ha'emantem bi laktisheni. You didn't have emunah, you didn't trust in me to sanctify me by speaking to the rock. Hainu, what does that mean? Shlo kaimu mashin stava b'miluo. You did not fulfill what I ordered you to do. You didn't follow instructions. Kasva Torah lo ha'emantem. When someone doesn't follow through on the instructions, the exact instructions Hashem give them, the Torah refers to that as a lack of emunah. That's a lack of trust by not following the instructions to the letter, to the T. That's what Rashi means when he says he believed, he trusted, but he didn't trust. Hainu, Masha Yamamin, what does it mean that he trusted? He was a mamin, Berachme v'chaste Hashem Yisprach. He was an incredible mamin. He was an incredible believer when it came. He really believed in Hashem's rachmanus, his mercy, and his kindness. However, he didn't follow instructions. He didn't go into the ark as soon as he was commanded to do so a week earlier. That's why he's referred to as having a lack of emunah. So a lack of emunah doesn't mean what we thought it meant. We thought a lack of emunah meant someone doesn't fully believe in Hashem. No, fully believes in Hashem, but not following through on the exact instructions that God gave him as in direct communication. That's called a lack of emunah. And where else did we see that? By Moshe Rabbeinu. If you would tell Moshe that he didn't believe in God, he'd say, what are you talking about? I speak to God every day. Moshe believed in God. There was no one who believed in God more than Moshe. He met him face to face. Yet when he didn't follow instructions, the Torah says, Lo ha'emantem bi. There was a lack of emunah. That's what the term the Torah uses by not following Hashem's instructions to the T. So here what he's done, Rav Yosef Salant has done, is he helped us understand this Rashi, the Rashi that's quoting this Medrash. What does it mean Noach didn't believe? Of course Noach believed. He's been working on this teva for 120 years. He's been ostracized. The whole world thinks he's off his rocker. He sacrificed all of his friendships and relationships to follow through on this. What do you mean he didn't believe? Of course he believed there's going to be a flood. What does it mean he didn't? What was going on? He believed so much. He was a mamin. He believes in Hashem. He knows God's capable of the flood, but he also knows what kind of a rachaman, what kind of a merciful being HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. And he could not fathom that he's going to actually follow through with it. I know he has the capability, but I don't think he's going to follow through with it. That's what he was mamin. So what does it mean he's an Eino mamin, that there was something lacking? That he still should have followed instructions. Even though he doesn't think the flood's going to happen because God's such a Rahman, God told him a week earlier, go into the ark, you and your family. He should have gone in. And in the ark, he could have said, okay, I don't think it's going to happen because God's such a Rahman. If he would have done that, he would have been a real mammon. He would have believed, he would have followed Hashem's instructions, and he really had incredible belief in Hashem's mercy. That would have made him an ultimate mammon. But what was lacking? That he didn't follow through on the instructions. So the way he's understanding this is that our number one job is to follow Hashem's instructions. We can have all sorts of other cheshbonos. We can have all sorts of other calculations and thoughts, as Noach would have been justified to have all these thoughts that he doesn't really believe God's going to bring the flood because he's such a Rahman. That's fine. You can have that thought. But in the meantime, go through with what the instructions were, which was take your family and go into the ark. That's how he's understanding this Rashi. I thought this is just a very nice insight that helps us understand a Rashi that I think we look at all the time, but never really, made all that much sense of. I thought that was a Dvar Torah number one I wanted to share with you. I want to share with you a second Dvar Torah, and this appears when the flood waters begin, and it's in the same parak. A couple psukim later, it says Yud Gimel in verse 13. Be'etzem hayom hazeh, on that very day. Be'etzem means right then and there in the midst, like at high noon, right in the middle of the day. Ba Noach v'Shem v'Cham v'Yafes b'nei Noach, Noach and his three sons, v'Eshes Noach and his wife, v'Shloshes Neshei Vanav and the three wives of his sons. All of them went itam el hateva. All of them went together into the ark. So the pasuk emphasizes be'etzem hayom hazeh. What does that mean, be'etzem hayom hazeh? So Rashi here tells us be'etzem hayom hazeh. What does it mean on that very day, or smack in the middle of the day? The Torah is teaching us as follows. The generation of Noach was saying, they for 120 years mocked him. There's never going to be a flood. And then finally, when the end is drawing close, they say, listen here, if we actually see that he's going into that ark, we're going to stop him. We're going to take out our chainsaws, our axes, and we're going to smash it to pieces. If he really is going to go in there thinking that he's going to survive and the rest of us are going to die, we're going to smash that ark to pieces and we're going to kill him. So God says, I'm going to ask him to go in at high noon, smack in the middle of the day, not under the cover of darkness and the cloak of darkness at all. And let's see whose word is going to prevail. Basically, Hashem is saying, bring it on. Let's see what's going on. Let's see who's going to win this one here. So Rashi's quoting a Sifri, he's quoting a beautiful medrash that tells us as follows. What was be'etzem hayom hazeh? Why did God make a point of saying this is going to take place in full display of humanity? Not at night, not in the crack of dawn, but in full midday. Why? Because there was a lot of Noach's enemies who were saying, if we even see him try to go into that ark, we're going to do everything we can to destroy it, and we're going to stop it. And we're going to come out with our axes, and we're going to break it, and then we're going to kill Noach so that he shouldn't think that he's going to survive. So God says, oh yeah, that's your plan? I'm going to have him go in smack in the middle of the day, bring it on, and let's see who wins. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. That's why it says, Be'etzem hayom hazeh. Now, we should recognize that expression, Be'etzem hayom hazeh, because we just read it in the Torah a couple of weeks ago. In Parshas Ha'azinu, at the end of Parshas Ha'azinu, which was right before Zos HaBracha, that we read on Simchas Torah, so it's the week before, it would have been, I guess that would have been Shabbos Shuvah. So it would have been Shabbos Shuvah, right? Yeah, I guess that would have been Shabbos Shuvah. What? It would have been Shabbos Shuvah. So it would have been, before Yom Kippur. So it was Parshas Ha'azinu, that what happened on Parshas Ha'azinu, at the end of the Parsha, we're going to read that Hashem, Erev Sukkot, right, Layla's right, it would have been Erev Sukkot, right, the Shabbos right before Sukkot, I'm sorry, right, Shabbos Shuvah would have been Vayelach. All right, so it was Shabbos we had right before Sukkot, so it would have been Ha'azinu. So the Pasuk tells us at the end of the Parsha, Hashem tells Moshe, it's time to go, your 120 years are up, and he tells Moshe that it's time to go. And then the last Parsha we read is Zos HaBracha, Moshe's parting words to Bnei Israel. Let's take a look in chapter 32, that's Perek Lamed Beis, at the end of Parshas Ha'azinu, when Moshe is informed that it's his time to go. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe be'etzem hayom hazeh lemor. Hashem speaks to Moshe be'etzem hayom hazeh. There's that same expression. In the midst of that day, on that very day, saying, Alei al har avarim hazeh, I want you to climb up this mountain har avarim, al har nevo, which also I want you to then go to har nevo, asher beretz Moav, asher al pnei Yerecho, Reis Eretz Canaan. I want you to look out and see the land of Canaan, which is going to become Israel. Asher anino sen lebnei Yisrael lechuzah. I'm going to give to the Jewish people as an inheritance. Umus bahar, and you're going to die up there on that mountain. Asher ato Allah shama ve'yasef al amach. You'll be gathered to your people. Kasher meis Avram. He gives them the guarantee you're going to have the same peaceful death that your brother Aaron experienced earlier in the journey in the wilderness. And he was gathered to his people. You're going to have that same peaceful death. You see that the Torah uses that same expression of be'etzem hayom hazeh. So Rashi quotes the Sifri again, And he tells us there's actually 3 places in the Torah where that expression comes up, and it can be darshaned, it can be explained the same way. So let's see this Rashi together. God spoke to Moshe in the midst of that day. There are 3 places in the Torah that this expression is used of saying in the midst of the day. Where's number 1? Our Parsha Noach. Nemar ben Noach. It says in Noach be'etzem hayom hazeh ba Noach. It was in the midst of that day that Noach and the family went into the ark. What does that mean? B'maris oro shel yom, in high noon, when the sun is out at its most full. Lefi show you b'nei dora omrim, because there were many people in that generation who said, "V'kach v'kach im anu margishim bo ein anu manichin osalichanes b'teva." If we catch him trying to go into the ark, we're not going to let it happen. Lo od, and not only are we going to stop him, we're going to take out our swords, we're going to take out our axes, we're going to destroy the ark, we'll kill Noach. So God says, I'm going to give him the order to go in at high noon. Anyone who thinks they're going to be able to stop it, come and try to stop it. So basically, bring it on. That's the same as what Rashi told us in our parsha. Where's the second time that we see Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh? So it says in bold, B'Mitzrayim, when Bnei Israel left Mitzrayim, when the Exodus finally takes place. It says, Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh Hotzi Hashem. In the midst of that day, God takes Bnei Israel out of Egypt, not during the night, not under the cloak of darkness, not at daybreak, but in the middle of the day. Lefi show you Mitzrayim Omrim, because the Egyptians were saying, B'kach b'kach, Imanu Margishin, they made the following oath. Imanu Margishim Bam, if we detect that Bnei Israel is about to leave, is going to leave Egypt, we will not let it happen. We'll take out our swords and all our weapons, and we're going to kill anyone who decides that they're going to try to break free. God says, I'm going to also take them out at high noon, at midday. Anyone who thinks they're going to be able to stop and protest, let them try. Bring it on. So that's the second place. And where's the third place in the Torah that Hashem says this idea of Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh? So here it is on the bottom. Afkan b'misaso shel Moshe. Also when Moshe Rabbeinu died, Nemar. Also there they said Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh. The Torah says Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh. Why? Again, Lefisha Yisrael Omrim, because there was members of Bnei Israel that were saying, Kach v'kach, we take the following oath, Imanu Margishim Bo, if we think that it's at the end that Moshe is going to die, Ein Anu Manichin, so we're not going to let it happen. Adam Shotziyanim and Mitzrayim, this is the person who took us out of Egypt. Paralanu Esayam, split the sea for us. Hordlanu Esaman, he was the one who brought down the man, that heavenly bread. Begizlanu as a Slav, he brought us quail to eat. Elanu as a Be'er, he was responsible for giving us water all those years. He kept us alive. We owe everything. V'nasalanu Satorah, he gave us the Torah. Einanu manichno, so we're not going to let him die. Amra Kadosh Baruch Hu, God says, Hareini machniso bechatzi hayom. I'm going to take Moshe and smack in the middle of the day, try and stop me. So these are cases, 3 cases where Hashem says, where people wanted to protest. And so God says, listen, I'm not doing this under the cloak of darkness. People, you've already voiced your objection. You want to try to stop me? I'm going to do this smack in the middle of the day, and let's see if you have the ability to stop me. Those are the cases. A lot of the Mefarshim ask, there's actually another one. When Avram Avinu got his bris milah, that's the same thing. Rashi brings the same thing. It also used the expression of Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh. And there too, Rashi brings down a medrash that says the same idea, that there were people who said, we're going to try to stop him from getting a bris milah, following through with this crazy act. Who ever heard of such a thing? And God says, okay, you want to try to stop him? Go for it. It's going to happen Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh, in the midst at high noon. Anyone who wants to try to stop, do your best, see who wins. So a lot of commentators wonder, why isn't that one included in this list? Some say it was, whatever, it's dealt with. But what I want to deal with today is a different question. I was so happy to find this inside. Remember, Rashi was quoting a Sifri. That was one of the Midrashim. So there's a commentary on the Sifri I have at home. It's called the Sifrei de Rav. It's Rav David Pardo. He was one of the Achronim. I believe he lived in Italy. And he asks an awesome question. I was so happy to see it because it's so logical. again, look at these three cases that Rashi brought down. The first case is what? The first case of Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh was in Parshas Noach. People are going to try to stop Noach from going into the Teva. They're going to offer up a fight. God says, yeah, okay, try to stop him and let's see who wins. All right. Case number two, Egyptians want to stop the Exodus, want to stop Jews from leaving Mitzrayim. They're going to come out with their swords and various instruments of war. You want to try to stop this? God says, come on out and let's see who wins. But in both of those cases, there's a havamina. There's at least some kind of suspicion how you can possibly stop it. You could, in the case of Noach, you can come out with your chainsaw and axe and say, okay, I'm going to break the ark. I'm going to try to kill Noach. In case number two, with leaving Mitzrayim, the Egyptians could come out with their military goods and they could say, we're going to stop Bnei Israel from going in. But case number three, how does anyone think they're going to stop Moshe from dying? Hashem's going to take his neshama. How could anyone really even have a havamina that they're going to stop Moshe from dying? It's almost ridiculous. How could you do that? So I saw that Rav David Pardo asks this. So look on the bottom of page 4 where I have that finger pointing. So the finger is pointing. It says, Ach kasha. See the first words on that line? Ach kasha. He says, here's the problem. I understand the first two cases. Idach shayach shapir. I can understand why a person might make the mistake to think they can prevent this. They might think, okay, we can prevent Noach from going into the ark. We'll put up a fight. We'll take out our axes. We'll break it. In the same case with the Egyptians, they may have thought they could prevent the Jews from leaving. Because they can put their military roadblocks. They can, whatever they want to do, they can think we have a way to do it. And Hashem says, okay, let's see if you can really pull it off. What about case number 3? Who in their right mind thinks they can stop Moshe from dying? He says, Avol, second line from the bottom, Avol shelo laniach leMoshe lamus, hechi cholim. What human being thinks that they could possibly prevent Moshe from dying? How do you think you're going to stop Hashem? God could just take his neshama, send the Malach HaMavis to come take the neshama. How does any human think I can possibly get in the way of that happening and I could stop Moshe from dying? Who could possibly say that? To that Hashem is going to have to say, okay, bring it on. Do your best and see if you can stop me. Who honestly thinks they could stop that? So look what he does. Yesh Lomar. Here's the answer. Top of the next column. Yesh Lomar, here's the answer. The Kivan Shiyadu, since Bnei Yisrael understood, they all know, Sha'amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God said to Moshe, Alei har avarim, I want you to first, before you die, you got to first climb that mountain. Ureyes Aretz, and take out a good look at Israel. Brisosa, in Cain. So now Bnei Yisrael could say, 1 second, you're right, we can't stop Hashem from taking a neshama. But Hashem has just told us that there's a sequence of events. Moshe will not die until he climbs the mountain. So what could we do? We could prevent him from climbing the mountain. As long as Moshe doesn't climb the mountain to see the land of Israel, he won't die. God told him in the pasuk that your death, you have one more mission before you die. You have to climb the mountain and look out at Israel. So maybe now people will think, if we want to prevent Moshe from dying, we want to keep him. You know what we'll do? We'll tie him up. We'll tie him up and we'll make sure he can't climb that mountain. So he says as follows. Sharei Divrei Yisparach lo yashuv reikam. If God gave the order that says that you won't die until you see the land of Israel from up on top of the mountain, that means it's got to stand. Moshe can't just die until he gets up there. So some of them may have had the wise idea. What does it mean we're not going to let it happen? They can't stop Hashem from taking his neshama, but you know what they could do? They may have thought, we'll stop him from climbing the mountain. We'll hold him down. We'll sandbag him. We'll put a pair of concrete shoes on him, whatever it is. We'll make sure, put handcuffs on him, leg irons. He won't climb the mountain. And if he can't climb the mountain, now God can't take his neshama. Now he won't die. We'll be able to keep Moshe. And that's why the Medrash that Rashi quotes concludes, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hareini Machniso. God says, I'm going to make sure it happens. You can't stop me. This is comparable. In other words, case number one, people thought they could stop Noach from going in the Teva. God says, bring it on. Case number two, the Egyptians thought they could stop the Jews from leaving Mitzrayim. God says, bring it on. Case number three, it's not that Jews thought we can stop Moshe from dying. Who could think that? They thought they could stop Moshe from climbing the mountain, which inevitably will prevent him from dying. God says, bring it on. Try and stop him. It's not going to work. Now it makes sense. Every time I see this Rashi, I have the following thought in my mind. I may have shared this with you before. I don't remember. When I was in elementary school, so this is in like the early 1980s, there was a huge publicity campaign that was taking place to try to publicize the plight of kidnapped children. And on every milk carton you would buy, there would be these missing pictures of kids on the back of milk cartons. And it scared the pants off me because these kids were all my age or younger. I remember I'm in like third grade, fourth grade at the time, sitting down to have my Cheerios in the morning, looking at the back of these milk cartons, and it scared the pants off us. And everyone was thinking about kidnapped kids. And then school did a whole thing where they invited the police to come in and speak to us about not taking rides with strangers. And then they fingerprinted everyone. So if God forbid anyone was ever abducted, their fingerprints would be on file. Oh my God, it was on all of our minds. And one night I had a dream. The dream was I was walking down my driveway to go to the school bus or to wait at the curb for the school bus. And a van came by and grabbed me, and I was abducted. And I woke up, I was terrified. But you know what happened in that dream? I saw the combination of clothing I was wearing. I saw which pair of khaki pants I had on. I saw which little polo shirt with the collar I had on. So I made a mental decision when I woke up, I would never wear that combination of shirt and pants together again. And by never wearing that combination of shirt and pants together again, I would prevent that dream from becoming a reality. I remember this in my little third or fourth grade mind. I determined, and I never again wore that shirt and pants set together again. That was my way. And I always think about this here because what happened? I was thinking in my mind, look, I can't prevent, I had this crazy vision in my dream that was terrified from all this kidnapping hype. I had this vision of God forbid getting kidnapped. I don't know what I could do to prevent that, but I could stop it from ever happening because in my dream, I saw what I was wearing. So if I'm never wearing that combination, that'll never become a reality. And in a sense, that's what the Divrei Torah is saying, what some members of Bnei Yisrael were thinking. We can't stop Hashem from taking Moshe's neshama. But now that Hashem told us that it's conditional, that he first has to climb this mountain and look out at the land of Israel, that's in our control. That I can stop. We'll make sure that Moshe never climbs the mountain. To which Hashem says, bring it on. You really think you can stop me? You think you can do that? Try and see who's going to win. Utsu Esav Isufar. Try your best, and see if you can outsmart, if you can outfox HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what he's saying there. So Hashem was telling him that, but I always think of that when I see this, because that's really the answer of the Divrei Torah, is that they're saying, okay, one item might be out of control, but now that I know it's contingent on something else, I'll do what I can prevent. That's what people were thinking, and that's what Hashem was saying. You won't be successful at trying that. That's the story there. All right, we're gonna conclude with that at that point. I hope you found these Divrei Torah on the Parsha